Released on July 19, 2022, Stray is a game where players take control of a stray cat that gets trapped in a strange underground facility and tries to escape the authoritative city down there. It's very atmospheric and has some of the best immersion I've ever seen in a game. It might also just be one of the most unique and creative games too. Sure, there's many games where players take control of an animal and explore some kind of landscape, but Stray really takes things to the next level with its level design and the fluid gameplay. Without further ado, let's give Stray a deeper look. In Stray, players utilize the dexterity, agility, and nimbleness of a cat to climb all over the place and go from platform to platform. The player can also do other things cats are known for, like knocking over stuff, squeezing into tight spaces, claw on several objects, sleep, and meow on command, possibly the best feature of this game. The Stray must also avoid these small creatures called Zurks, or else it's game over. Run away from them, or use the defluxer to kill them. The narrative consists of the Stray navigating through the wasteland of a lost city and working with the robots that live there to get back to the world above. They'll have to solve puzzles by looking for clues all over the environment. Speaking of which, let's talk about the story. The main character is a stray cat that roams around with other strays, living life by exploring abandoned urban areas. When dead, while creeping, the main stray takes a fall after a pipe they were standing on breaks. The cat finds themselves in a desolate sewer system and goes on to explore the slum city connected to it. The stray runs into the aforementioned Zurks, which become hostile in large groups, prompting it to flee. After escaping the oddities, the player does some more platforming before entering an apartment. The cat puts together some electronics, then meets B-12, a drone robot that seems to have been human once, but can't remember anything. Anyways, B-12 and the stray work together to exit the apartment and find more about this mysterious wasteland. They go down to the slums, where a bunch of robots live, and run into the guardian that protects them. He advises that if the duo wants to go to the outside, they should talk to Momo. But before that, don't be afraid to explore the slums first and talk to some of the robots. Some of them give important story items, or some other neat things. One of them will even play a song if the player finds some sheet music. Once players get to where they're supposed to be, Momo reveals he was part of a group known as the Outsiders, and they worked to reach the outside world, but failed, and there's nothing they could do without the rest of the crew. Momo gives the two his journal, prompting them to find the three other journals from the Outsiders. The Stray and B-12 show the other works as a sad robot, and becomes full of hope again, now that he can figure out how to fix the transceiver and communicate with his crew again. Momo leads the duo to his back window, that leads to a huge antenna that'll help to send messages through the receiver. Once the two have found the antenna and implanted the communication device, they head back to Momo's apartment, where he leaves a note stating he'll meet them at the bar. The group gets a signal from Zabaltzar, and he claims the team must go to the sewers if they are to see the outside again. Unfortunately, the signal is weak, and they decide to ask a robot named Seamus for help. Seamus' father was a genius, and made an invention that could kill the Zurks, but unfortunately, he's in another part of the slums. The Stray and Seamus fix up a broken transmitter, and the Stray goes to find Seamus' father, Doc, from the ping received by the device. Doc gives the feline a device to kill the Zurks, so it can go into more dangerous areas and find the other Outsiders. Doc and his son are reunited, but the Stray can't stay too long, for it must go with Momo to the sewers and continue their adventure. The team venture off to the sewers, but the Stray and Momo are separated, as he cannot go any further at a certain point. While there, the duo rows into what seems to be the Zurks' home base, where they lay eggs in order for more of the aliens to hatch and attack any living thing. The area is also covered in their disgusting goop, and let's not forget the eyes on the wall that watch the Stray. The two get caught in a sticky situation, with the Stray getting jumped by the Zurks, causing B-12 to short circuit after using too much of the defluxer to kill the aliens. The Stray picks B-12 up and makes a swift escape to the ant village, a small sanctuary for the robots, to mate Zabaltzar. The Outsider points them to Midtown, where they can find Clementine and boot up the subway. The duo find Clementine, and she says they had to go into the factory to steal a battery for the train to boot up, and then they had to get the keys for the train too. Once they complete these tasks, B12 and the cat meet up with Clementine at the nightclub, but unfortunately, the client that worked with the robot set them up, and they all get arrested. The stray escapes from its cage and finds Clementine and B12. With them all reunited, they escape back to Midtown, but not without the Sentinels hot on their tails. The Sentinels being these drones that patrol the area. The stray and B12 make it to the subway, but Clementine leaves them so that she can keep the Sentinels on her and not on the new outsiders. With the battery plugged in and the keys in the ignition, it's time to go to the control room. The duo breaks in and hacks the system so that the outside world may be seen again. Unfortunately, B12 can't make it. The power it took to hack everything was too much for his robot body to handle, but he's willing to take the sacrifice for everybody else. With the restrictions removed, the stray can now go back to its normal life in the outside, and all the dangerous life forms die from the sun's exposure. One more thing. Throughout the story, B12 slowly gains his memory about who he was, and finds out he was a scientist that was trapped in the underground and lived a good life, but was ultimately robotized. A plague developed in the area, so the rich protected themselves, left the area, then quarantined the place. All the other humans died, and afterwards, the robots continued to live on and follow the way the humans lived. There are a few core memories that the player gains just by going through the story, but they're side pieces that the player can interact with to gain smaller memories that build into the story. The story is very nice, and even though it's full of robots, it does say a lot about humanity. B12's statement of, even in dire times, humans cannot help but divide themselves by social class, is a good summary of the whole thing. Of course, a story about oppression wouldn't be complete without a sense of hope, and that's of course what the stray represents. Like how the stray uses its cat abilities to navigate the landscape and survive, humans will do anything in their power to ensure their survival, but also to make the world a better place. Okay, enough of the preaching. The mystery of the underground and the progression of B12 regaining his memory entice the player to keep going, and helps in building the world around the stray. The player can also show the other robots things they collected, and most of the times, they'll give you a unique response. A really good way to add some personality to the game, and build the world the developer set up. The only other feature I can think about is the player can go back to and select any chapter they want to after they've beaten the game. Otherwise, there's not much else to say about Stray's gameplay. I decided to combine both the visuals and sound department into one section, because there isn't too much to say about either section, and I thought it'd create a better flow. Anyways, the visuals are neat, pleasing, and very atmospheric. The game does a stunning job in conveying the city has been run down for years, and the robots are living as best as they can with what they have. The lighting is killer too. It really builds into this sort of cyberpunk aesthetic, and works well with the other textures. Playing into the wasteland visuals, there's a lot of graffiti sprayed on the walls, all kinds of junk everywhere, and DIY solutions made by the robots. They also seem to have their own language to add into the mystery and strange nature of the underground. Speaking of the robots, they're made of all kinds of scrap themselves, with their heads usually a small computer display from years ago. Their display shows simple animations that resemble certain emotions. Now, let's talk about the animations. The stray's dexterity really comes alive whenever it leaps onto other objects. There's just something that's so fluid about the way it climbs and pounces around the slums. The stray will also do things like lick itself and twitch or scratch its ears whenever it's idle to add some immersion to the game. The player can even see the cat breathe. The cutscenes in this game are quite cinematic. It adds on the black bars and the characters become quite animated. There's 3 pre-rendered cutscenes that the player will encounter throughout the story, but otherwise, everything else is rendered in-game. Now, onto the sound design. The sound design of Stray is great. Just like everything else in this game, the music is atmospheric and puts players into the moment. It's very lo-fi with its slow instrumentation and smoothing, calming nature. The music also uses sounds from the environment to really create some immersion. Of course, the soundtrack does start to speed up and become tensual once things start to get crazy, like whenever the stray has to run away from the Zerks or the Sentinels. The sound effects are pretty standard, nothing spectacular, but they do their job. The dialogue in this game is backed by a garble of robotic sounds, kind of like if the chatter from Banjo-Kazooie, Animal Crossing was from primitive computers. And that's all I had to say about the sound design. There's like 3 extras I could think about for this game. First, the PS5 version has the haptic feedback the DualSense controller is known for. The controller will vibrate in a very specific way, such as whenever the stray purrs, or when the player uses a bucket and feels the roughness of the iron wire. Secondly, there's badges the player can collect throughout the game. If the player does some exploring and completes certain tasks, they earn a badge that sticks to the stray's vest. They don't do anything, they're purely for looks, but hey, why not make the stray look all snazzy? Lastly, the mods for this game. Most of them consist of replacing the stray's model with another cat, or quite ridiculous swaps like Shrek as a cat. There's some other cool mods like replacing all the robots with humans, and someone even made a custom map for the game, so that's real neat. Otherwise, everything else is pretty much just texture and sound replacements. Now, the issues. I don't really have any issues with this game. If I had to complain, I'd say sometimes it feels like the button prompts don't show up when they should, and I wish the game showed a bit more of the stray and the outside at the end. I think it would have made the ending more emotional and gratifying. Other than that, I don't really have anything to say about Stray and its issues. Stray is a fun game with its simple but sweet puzzles, fun platforms that really use the nimbleness of a cat, amazing immersion with immaculate world building and visuals that work with the environment, and a soundtrack that adds to the mystery of the city. That's kind of everything Stray has to offer. About 4.5 hours of gameplay, a bunch of memories for the player to gain to learn more about the story, a fun movement system that is a great reflection to how a cat moves, stunning visuals that create a lot of immersion and are just pleasing to look at, an atmospheric soundtrack that builds into the moment at appropriate times, 6 different badges to collect, and city environments fit for a cat to roam around in. Stray is a simple game, but it has so much uniqueness, and there's a decent amount to explore if the player wants to do everything. There's so much charm to every aspect of this game. Everything really comes together to create an unforgettable experience. And until next time, make it to the outside.